Right, okay. Now, our 74, let's see what that has to say. And our code 74 basically says we've got a brake switch problem. If we did have a code 74 when the engine wasn't running, we'd want to check out that brake switch. But engine running, it says we did not step on the brake pedal during our test. So what we would want to do at this time is actually rerun our test. And after that dynamic code came, we would snap the throttle, and then we'd want to actually step on the brake pedal once and turn the steering wheel all the way from lock to lock.
That's right. That's right.
And that's because this vehicle actually has a check engine light in it, and we could watch the codes right in there.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, this then would conclude the testing on our vehicle. The only thing that I would like to mention at this time is clearing the codes. And to clear any codes you might get on a Ford, all we have to do is unplug the code key from the connector as we're getting the codes, the engine running codes.
Okay.
And unplugging the key anytime after the codes start flashing will clear the memory, and then you're done.
Okay, sounds good.
Extracting Ford service codes is not a difficult task. These following steps explain how. Locate the EEC test connector, usually found under the hood. Insert the code key and test light as shown. Observe and record the codes flashed by the test light or dash light. Now, perform the engine running service code test. Watch for the dynamic engine response code, perform the required duties, and observe and record the service codes flashed. Once the codes have been given, reference the codes recorded in the service manual or tech tip. After the repairs are completed, clear the service codes by removing the code key during another engine running test.
We're sitting in a late model Chrysler vehicle. We're going to extract the trouble codes from the computer system. Actually, Chrysler vehicles are one of the easiest ones to do. But I still have my pad and paper and my manual along with me to tell me where to start diagnosis once we've got the codes out.
Now, like all vehicles, we must count the flashes of the check engine light or other diagnostic tool that we have attached to the system. In the case of the Chrysler, there is a check engine light. But we don't have a diagnostic connector to worry about or any special tools. All we need is the ignition key. We simply insert it into the ignition switch and turn the system on, off, on, and leave it on.
Okay, now we're going to observe the check engine light, and it's on right now. Bingo, went out, should start flashing codes.
1, 1, 2.
Okay.
That's a 12. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a 14.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a 55.
Okay.
And that's our last code. The lamp has stopped flashing.
Yep, as a matter of fact, if we look in the manual, the 55 says end of message for trouble codes. So that's nothing that we have to work on. That just means our system is done telling us codes.
Right.
But our 12 and 14 are telling us we've got a problem to look into.
That is correct.
All right, if I look in the manual here, a 12 says we've got a problem in the memory feed circuit, okay? So basically that's telling us we probably got a wiring problem.
Yeah, usually that just means we have an open circuit somewhere, and that'll be easy to check later.
Okay, and we've also got a code 14, which says a map sensor electrical problem. Okay, so those two are probably going hand in hand. There's a good chance that either somebody left the map sensor disconnected when they were working on the vehicle, or possibly that the wires have gotten burnt or frayed, or something like that's happened to create an open circuit.
That's right.
Now, once we've got that repaired, we have to remove the codes from the computer, don't we, Jim?
Right. Now, the Chrysler, like all the other vehicles, have a fairly simple method for removing the codes. Actually, you can either disconnect one of the battery cables for a few moments, and that will erase all of the computer's memory. That will also erase the memory of your radio if you have some programs in there. So if you don't want to erase your radio's programming, only the computer's memory, find the fuse for the computer in the fuse panel and just pull that out for a few moments. That'll take care of the computer's memory while not interfering with what you've got in your radio.
Sounds great.
Obtaining the service codes from a Chrysler vehicle is a snap, as you've already seen. Begin by inserting the ignition key. Then, activate the self-diagnostic system by cycling the ignition key as shown. Now, observe and record the flashes of the check engine light. Reference the service codes in a service manual or tech tip. Locate and follow the diagnostic chart in the service manual. After the repairs are completed, remove the service codes from the computer's memory.
Our drivability problem this time is on a Chrysler vehicle, Jim. And what we've got is we've got the kind of that rotten egg smell or odor coming out of the tailpipe, the poor fuel economy, and the driver just complained about the throttle response just isn't what it used to be. Now, I use the key method to pull the codes on the car. On, off, on, off, on. I came up with a code 22. And when I looked in our book, a code 22 said O2 system full rich or full lean. So, boy, we know where to start, don't we?
We sure do. It's in the oxygen sensor circuit, but we don't really know where. Could be a wire, a computer problem, could even be the oxygen sensor itself. So, best thing to do is remove it from the vehicle and take a look at it and see what color it is. Maybe that will help us determine the problem.
Sure. There's three things that you can do to an oxygen sensor. First thing is you can perform a visual inspection. Right. Second thing is you can do an on-the-bench test. And the third thing is you can test it on the vehicle, and we'll do all three of those right now.
Well, let's take a look at the colors first. Here's one we took from a vehicle that has sort of a grayish color. You can see a little bit of a coating on it, but that's normal, Scott. That shows just it's been in there for a long time doing its job, and it has normal combustion type color.
Okay.
Now here's another one that is normal also. It doesn't have quite the amount of deposits on. It's got a slightly reddish tint to it, and that reddish color comes from the gasoline additives that we have nowadays. So that's a pretty good looking oxygen sensor too. It's just been in there a long time doing its job, and we had to replace it just as normal maintenance.
Okay.
But here's one that's all black. See that rich black color? And that comes from an over-rich mixture. And it has coated the whole thing with carbon.
Yep.
So maybe this is part of the problem that we're having on the vehicle that you just described.
Okay, now we've got some lighter colored ones over here too.
Yeah, now this one here is just a slight hint of gray, and it looks like someone's been running leaded gas in this car.
Okay, and that'll contaminate the sensor, and that could create our problem that we're having right now. The sensor is not as active as it used to be because it is now contaminated by leaded fuel.
Right. And the last one here that we can look at is one that's kind of a chalky white color. And this usually shows contamination from using antifreeze that's leaking through the head gasket someplace, or anywhere where it gets into the cylinders.
Sure.
Sometimes using a silicone-based sealing compound that is not the right type will also cause this type of contamination. So silicone or antifreeze will turn them white.
Okay. Now, how about our bench test? We finished our inspection and determined that, let's check this one right here. This one came out of the vehicle, and you said it looked fairly well.
Yeah, it really did. Now, doing it on the bench simply requires the use of a propane torch and also a voltmeter, a digital voltometer.
Okay.
Now, the whole idea here will be to put the tip of the oxygen sensor into the flame where there is no oxygen. Now, on the car, an oxygen sensor that's detecting a lean mixture will produce a low voltage, and one that's detecting a rich mixture will produce a high voltage. Now, there's no oxygen in the flame, so that's kind of like a rich mixture. Okay. So as we stick it in the flame, the voltage should come up. And as I pull it out of the flame, the voltage should go down. And that's our test. But there's a time limit on this. When I put it in the flame, the oxygen sensor must be able to produce 0.9 of a volt within 1 minute. And when I pull it out of the flame, the voltage must drop within